Hi everyone, I'm Mary Scarpati. I'm a Catholic wife and mother of two. Today I'm going to be discussing 5 saints for mothers to pray to and 5 novenas that go along with those saints that mothers can pray to. If you're a mother or you hope to be a mother, these are great saints to turn to when walking along the journey of motherhood or hopeful motherhood. Some of these saints are very popular and you'll have heard of them before, and some of them will be new to you. If you have any saints that you recommend that I don't mention in this video, please put it in the description box below. I tried not to use saints that I've already talked about in other saints and novenas videos. I did one on saints to pray to for marriage and saints to pray to if you're single. So if you're curious about those, I'll have them linked in the description box below. The first saint that I'm going to be talking about today is Saint Gianna Mola. Saint Gianna Mola is very famous in the Catholic world for motherhood, especially those who are experiencing infertility or complications when it comes to pregnancy. She's the patron saint of physicians, mothers, and unborn children. Saint Gianna Mola was a pediatrician in Italy. She had 3 children, and when she became pregnant with her 4th, the doctors found a tumor in her uterus. The doctors encouraged her to end the life of her child because the risk of her own health was too great because of the tumor. Saint Gianna chose to keep the life of her baby, and she did receive a surgery that removed the tumor, but there were further complications from it. At the end of her pregnancy, she knew that her health was in danger, and one of the things she instructed her family and friends was that if it was between her and her child, that she wanted the doctors to choose the life of her child and make sure to save her child. Shortly after giving birth to her daughter, she died from an infection. She is an incredible saint. There's so many beautiful stories of women struggling with infertility and praying to Saint Gianna for her intercession. She's a beautiful example of motherhood and trusting in the Lord and sacrificing all for her children. And as mothers, isn't that what we're called to? The second saint I recommend praying to for mothers is Saint Mother Teresa. She was not technically a mother, but she was a mother to many. She was a mother to the sisters in her community, and she was a mother to all the people that she took care of in her missions. Saint Mother Teresa became a nun, originally was a school teacher in Calcutta. She wanted to serve the Lord and do whatever the Lord called her to do. Her testimony is so incredible, and I could make a whole video just on Saint Mother Teresa. I highly recommend. There's a documentary called No Greater Love that was made after a book about Mother Teresa, and I saw it in the movie theaters almost a year ago, and it completely moved my heart. It just made me want to do more for the Lord. Talk about hearing about saints really convicts you about what living with the Lord looks like. Mother Teresa was such a great example of living with the Lord and being such a strong mother. She was very petite. She was like 4'11", I think. She was very unassuming, but she achieved such great things with God. She lived her whole life walking with God. She lived in desolation for many years, which means that she didn't feel the presence of the Lord, yet she continued to persevere and serve him each and every day and spend time in adoration and remain close to the Lord because she knew the truth even if she couldn't feel it all the time. There are a few stories that I've heard about Mother Teresa that I feel like really depict her motherhood. When she was visiting one of her convents in New York, somebody donated these really fancy chocolates. She handed out the chocolates to everyone, and there wasn't enough chocolate for her to have, but she made sure everybody else had it. And I just thought that was so beautiful, and it's like so true as mothers. Sometimes when we're feeding our kids, I feel like you're feeding everybody else, and then you end up like, normally I end up eating, but it's like a cold half-eaten meal because I didn't get a chance to like sit and eat it while it was hot. And it just made me think of how sweet it is, the heart of a mother Mother Teresa had. There's another story that was actually in the documentary that really struck me. This nun that had been working in the south side of Chicago, I believe it was Chicago, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty positive it was the south side of Chicago. Gang members kept shooting at the entryway of their convent and were really threatening and harassing the nuns. So one day Mother Teresa went to the gang members and confronted them about them shooting at the nuns, and the gang members threatened her and said that they did business in there and that like she shouldn't be there. And she said, well, I have business here too. I'm trying to take care of the people of this community and I need your cooperation. The gang leader was so moved by Mother Teresa not being intimidated by them that he offered their protection to the nuns, and nobody bothered the nuns after that. I'm just so moved by such a strong mother. She was not afraid. She knew that she was working for the Lord and that with the Lord all things are possible, and she just went for it. And she did not let herself get intimidated. And I hope that I can handle myself so well in tense conflict. Another story that I thought really speaks to a mother's heart was that Mother Teresa was such a busy woman. She had missions all over the world. She was helping thousands of people people alive every day. Yet she was known to not rush her time, and one of her prayers was, Lord, if you want me to do something, give me enough time in the day to do it. She never fretted about not having enough time or getting everything done. She just focused on the thing that was in front of her, and she trusted that if the Lord was calling her to do something, that he would make the time for it. I think that's so cool, because we as mothers, oh my goodness, every day is so crazy, especially right now. I have one son that just turned 17 months today, and I have another son that's 2 months old. Every day flies by. I'm doing the nights with my 2-month-old. He is not sleeping through the night right now. If you could pray for him to start sleeping through the night, that would be very much appreciated. Maybe I need to reach out to one of these saints that I'm talking about to help me with my baby's sleep, because I don't know what to do. It's been really hard. It just makes me think, like, my nights are so chaotic and then my days are so full. Sometimes I feel like I can't get everything done, but I remember that testimony from Mother Teresa, and I just say to the Lord, if you want me to do something, convict me to do it and help me make the time for it. The third saint that I'm going to be sharing with you today is Saint Amelia. Saint Amelia was a mother of 10. 5 of her 10 children became saints, and she also became a saint, which is so incredible. Our number one goal is to get our children to heaven. That's one of the biggest callings of our life, is to get our children to heaven. That's something I think about all the time. What a great responsibility it is to teach our children to love the Lord. There's so many messages in our world that are pulling our youth and our children to worldliness, sin, choosing money and power. And at the end of the day, the greatest thing that we can encourage our children to do is to love the Lord and serve the Lord in whatever way he's calling our children to. That's like one of my biggest prayers. My children are so small still, but I really pray to God every day that my children just love Jesus with such a full heart. I'm going to be praying to Saint Amelia specifically to intervene for my children, especially when it comes to their faith life, and to grow closer to the Lord. The fourth saint that I recommend praying to is Saint Elizabeth Ann Seton. Saint Elizabeth Ann Seton has such an incredible testimony. She was very happily married, but her husband ended up having bad business dealings. She had a strained relationship with her in-laws. They ended up going to Italy to try and save her husband's help with his business dealings, and basically her husband ended up dying. The Italian people that were his connections there, their faith actually inspired her to convert to Catholicism from Protestantism. I don't remember what form of Protestantism she was, but she converted to Catholicism because of the witness of the Italian people that they were surrounded by and the community they had received while they were there in Italy. When Elizabeth Ann Seton came back to the United States, she decided to become a nun, and she started a convent and several Catholic schools. She is a great saint to pray to for your children's education, whatever form of schooling that you decide to educate your children with. She would be a great one to ask to intervene and guide your choices as far as education is concerned. I feel like as a mom, that I again said I have such small children, but that's something I think about all the time, how I want my children to be educated, where I want to send them, or if I want to homeschool. And I will be praying to Saint Elizabeth Ann Seton, guide those choices and make choices that are inspired by God. The fifth saint I recommend praying to for mothers is Saint Elizabeth of Hungary. Saint Elizabeth of Hungary is actually my confirmation saint. She was a mother of 3. She was a princess. This is a little bit of a tangent, but fun fact, the reason I chose Saint Elizabeth of Hungary were shallow reasons. I loved the name Elizabeth when I was younger, and I loved that Saint Elizabeth of Hungary was a princess. I think she was a princess or royalty, but at the time, she was advertised to me as a princess, so I was very much into Saint Elizabeth of Hungary, and I was like, that's gonna be my confirmation saint. Now, all these years later, there was a time where I was pretty disappointed in myself, embarrassed that I had chosen a saint for such shallow reasons, but now I see it as we were meant to be friends. She was very happily married to her husband. Her husband sounded like a really good man, and he was very supportive of her devotion to the poor. She lived very simply, even though she was very wealthy and powerful. She would donate the majority of their money and supplies to the poor. She started hospitals and took care of the sick. She had 3 children of her own. When her husband fell ill and died, she completely devoted her life to the poor and serving the poor. She's a great saint to pray to if you have a child that's sick or not feeling well or any kind of illness for children. She was a great tender to not only the poor but also the sick. Those are the 5 saints I recommend praying to as mothers. I will link the novenas down below if you want to start praying novenas to those 5 saints. If you have any recommendations, there's tons of other incredible female saints that were mothers, like Saint Sally Martin and the Blessed Mother. I wanted to try and name some saints that maybe you haven't heard of before. If you like this video, please like it and please subscribe to my channel. I'd love to be your friend.